Roland Martin Unfiltered for Friday, November 30th, 2018. Amber Guyger indicted on murder charges by the Dallas County Grand Jury. We'll talk with Lee Merritt, the attorney for the family. Also hear from Botham Jean's mother. He was a man, Amber Guyger, shot and killed. Also, Rashad Robinson and Color Change had a big meeting with Facebook, of course, after the blockbuster New York Times story detailing them being targeted and attacked by Facebook for criticism of Facebook. We'll talk with Rashad Robinson right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. The band director at Bowie State is out, has resigned. The band is on probation for a year. You hear an exclusive interview with Bowie State President Aminta Bro. She talks about exactly what took place in the investigation regarding hazing at Bowie State. Tomorrow is World AIDS Day, and we'll talk to a professor at Morgan State who talks about the psychological issues as to why African Americans are not getting tested. Also, a new HBO documentary airs on Monday about Sandra Bland. We'll talk with the director and the Bland family attorney, Connor Lambert. Also, my interview with Constance White, the former editor of Essence magazine. She talks about her book on style, How to Slay. Folks, we've got a jam-packed show. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin!
Amber Guyger, the Dallas police officer who shot and killed Botham Jean, charged with murder. That decision came down today by the Dallas County Grand Jury. Here is Faith Johnson, the Dallas County DA, announcing that decision.
Today, the Dallas County Grand Jury has returned an indictment against Amber Guyger. We were determined to present to this grand jury all of the facts and to clarify for them the law so that they could make the decision they thought was right and just on behalf of Botham Jean.
The family of Botham Jean, they were on hand today as Faith Johnson made that announcement. Here is the mother of Botham Jean, Allison.
I am indeed satisfied with the indictment for murder of Amber Guyger because I truly believe that she inflicted tremendous evil on my son. He didn't deserve it. He was seated in his own apartment. He felt safe in that apartment, and he was violated by her coming in and murdering him. So from the very start, I knew that she murdered him, and I was not satisfied at the manslaughter charge. I look forward to the next step, which is a conviction of murder of Amber Guyger, and more so of a penalty, the proper penalty that will cause her to reflect on what she has done and the pain that she has caused, not only my son, but my family, my church, my country. So I'm depending on you to continue to rally with us as we seek continued justice for him. Thank you.
All right, folks, joining us right now is the attorney for the Botham Jean family, Lee Merritt. Lee, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. First and foremost, just your reaction to this decision by the grand jury to indict Amber Guyger. And is it a murder charge or is it murder and manslaughter? Please explain.
Well, Daryl, Ben, and I, we thought that it was appropriate for the murder charge, and just to answer your question, it is in fact a murder charge, to go forward. The reason for the confusion is because the Texas Rangers recommended a charge for manslaughter. The grand jury had to do something exceptional, which was reject the charge from the Rangers, which was the wrong charge to begin with, and come to the independent determination that they believed the facts supported the charge for murder. They were supported in that conclusion by the presentation put together by the district attorney, Faith Johnson, and her team, but they had to go out of their way to overturn, essentially, what was recommended to them by the Texas Rangers. We knew it was the right thing from the beginning. Just a quick distinction, when the difference between murder and manslaughter is what's going on in her mind at the time she pulled the trigger. As you know, a manslaughter charge means that it was either a reckless or unintentional action. And for murder, she had to intend to point her gun at a person and pull the trigger. And we know, even from what she's testified, that when she went into that apartment and she saw both of them in his apartment, she made the decision, according to her own affidavits, to first give commands and then pull the trigger. That what she described in her own words is murder.
And when you talk about that decision making, again, the Texas Rangers, they initially had her charged with manslaughter. Many people have been highly critical of that investigation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was Roland. That was the wrong charge from the onset. We've always thought that this should have been murder. The Texas Rangers, quite frankly, did not have enough information to even consider it manslaughter. The DA's office did their own independent investigation. They talked to over 200 witnesses. So it was always clear that based on the evidence, this officer intended to kill both of them on that night. And we knew that murder was the only appropriate charge.
And just to be clear, Roland, those Rangers, from the first day that they met with the family, which is the day after Botham was killed, or the Saturday after Botham was killed, they said that they didn't believe that Amber did anything wrong, that it was a big mistake, and that it certainly wasn't murder. That's how they started their investigation. And then they went about hoping to prove that. We have an experience with the Texas Rangers that anytime they are assigned the task of investigating police officers, they either look to exonerate them or they look to give them the least possible charge here. And so that unfortunately, that's going to be an ongoing fight as we move into the trial portion of this, because the Rangers' testimony and their investigation will be relied on heavily by the prosecutors in order to secure a conviction.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we first of all certainly appreciate you joining us, and we'll be certainly covering this trial now that it's about to move to its next phase. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, another story that we've been covering deals with the issue of Facebook and civil rights organizations. Yesterday, of course, we had Vanita Gupta on the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights with regards to them joining Color of Change when it comes to criticizing Facebook for their actions. What they went after them because of Color of Change was critical of Facebook. Facebook hired an external organization, a right-wing PR group, to attack them and to also tie them to George Soros, somehow suggesting that he is completely funding Color of Change. It was a blockbuster story in the New York Times, and that led to a meeting between Rashad Robinson, the head of Color of Change, as well as Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook. Joining us right now is Rashad Robinson to tell us about that particular meeting. Rashad, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Always great to be with you.
And so the meeting took place when? Was it yesterday or today?
It was yesterday. It was yesterday afternoon out at their offices in the Bay.
And so there were a number of things that you wanted to cover in the meeting. First of all, how long did the meeting last? Was it only Sheryl Sandberg you were meeting with, and what was the outcome?
So the meeting was about an hour and 15 minutes. It included two colleagues of mine, my head of campaigns, Arisha Hatch, and Brandy Collins-Dexter, who's been leading this work, who's a senior campaign director for Color of Change. So both Arisha and Brandy from our side, and then two senior policy folks from the Washington, D.C. office flew out to also join Sheryl Sandberg on her side. Mark Zuckerberg stopped in for a couple of minutes to say hi, But for the bulk, for the basic hour plus, it was the six of us.
And in that meeting, you obviously covered what took place with Facebook hiring this organization, coming after you guys. But what else came out of that meeting? What in any resolutions?
So yeah, there was a couple of resolutions. Heading into this meeting and long before there was any sort of request, there was any sort of news from the New York Times about about this Definers organization attacking us, we had been demanding a civil rights audit. And I know Vanita probably talked about some of that, but Color of Change for a couple of years now have been demanding a civil rights audit of Facebook, similar to the work that we had done in Airbnb. The Leadership Conference and other organizations over time have joined us in those calls. But we had gotten no feedback. We knew they had been interviewing people. We knew they'd been talking to people. They came to our office and talked to us, but there was no transparency. So one of our demands was a public reporting from Facebook on where they're at in the civil rights audit, what they've done, what they know, so that we actually can provide scrutiny of an organization that we have no ability to trust at this point. Sheryl Sandberg, towards the end of the meeting, committed to a public release of their findings up to this point by the end of the year. They also committed to a public process around implementation starting next year. They also committed to ongoing work around sort of continuing the audit with the recognition that these problems didn't happen overnight and they won't be solved overnight. Those were the pieces that we walked away feeling good about, or feeling like we're at least making some progress.
And again, initially they were refusing to release that audit, correct?
Not only were they refusing to release the audit, they were giving us any information about where they're at. They were basically like having all these conversations and saying, "Don't worry, trust us." And even when we got into the meeting, they didn't start the meeting off by saying, "Hey, here's what we're going to do." We really pressed them that there was no way that we could sort of keep engaging at a level of trust unless we had something released publicly. And so we got the commitment that by the end of the year, Facebook will do a public release of where they're at in the audit. And, that was one of the pieces that felt positive. However, Roland, there were a number of pieces that still are of deep concern, everything from the issues you're dealing with to the ways in which they have attacked us.
And again, when you talk about the issues that I'm dealing with, again, one of the things that I've talked about, and not just with me, but also these technology companies out here, not only my capacity as owner of this show, but also being vice president digital for the National Association of Black Journalists, is how these companies are also investing in and supporting black content creators. With Facebook Watch launching their 20 shows they're funding, none are African American, none are black media companies, and so we've also been looking at these other tech companies as well, and unfortunately, new media is looking like old media in terms of shutting folks out. And then, of course, when you talk about African American consumers over-indexing on social media, driving these numbers, and what black folks want to know is that, look, don't just treat us as folks who can help grow your stock price, who can also grow your company with advertising. We also want to see African Americans who will be able to build their own companies by virtue of working with companies like Facebook and being funded.
This is one of the largest communications platforms the world has ever seen, and one of the most powerful corporations. And the innovation has the potential to bring us into the future, but their policies and practices are in some ways driving us into a past where we lose some of the things that we already won and fought for. One of the things that we really focused on with Sheryl was this sort of false dichotomy that sort of is at the heart of some of the problems at Facebook, that they kind of put this idea of like fighting and hoping that conservatives don't feel like they're being attacked on the same level as civil rights. And so they almost see like when you're talking about something that's black or women or Latino or LGBT, that's liberal and it's left, and it all is inside of this like left bucket, which is not accurate. And that goes to sort of all the ways in which they have, every time they bring up questions around voter suppression, they also talk about voter fraud, and they did that when they were doing their war room. Over and over again, part of the problem is that this company doesn't completely and fully understand civil rights. And so while I felt like we had a really good meeting with Cheryl in that we really pressed that, we really sort of pushed that moment, this has to trickle down throughout the whole organization. And so this is not whether or not Cheryl or Mark are good people or bad people. That's not my job to like figure that out or get into their heads. This is about a structure in a huge organization that has systemic problems all throughout, that is sort of rotten throughout and needs to be fixed and needs like the level of accountability that will move the process forward. We asked Cheryl directly for the information that they obtained through definers, what definers did. And I asked for that as the leader of an organization who's been attacked and figuring out what's been put out there in the world and how do I keep my folks safe. They did not give us that information. They also did not agree to fire Joel Kaplan, who in our opinion and many others' opinion has been the chief architect of this idea that, you know, conservatives getting the same amount of time talking about climate is the same as like climate change or something like that is the same thing as you having a show or Latino folks having a show. It's not the same thing. And trying to help them not put sort of Black people's ability to be heard and counted and visible as just as politics. We talked a lot about that there's right and there's left, but there's also right and wrong. And the systemic exclusion of Black people from the employee base of the corporation to how they engage consultants and other folks to how they treat media individuals like yourself. All of this speaks to the reasons why we called for the civil rights audit in the first place, to bring sunlight, transparency, and visibility to these problems. Because if we are not, as a civil rights community, holding institutions like Facebook accountable, who, you know, will come to our organizations and offer us checks and, you know, say nice things to us or show up to our events, but their actual real power is about ensuring that our people have the ability to use this platform to build their businesses, to earn a living, and to speak their mind in our democracy. And those are the things that we have to fight for, and we have to be unapologetic in it. And so we made really clear demands. We got some of the things we wanted. When we came out of that meeting, we talked to the press very clearly about the things that we didn't want. And we're continuing to press. We're continuing to talk to investors. We're continuing to talk to folks in the regulatory community like the FTC. We're continuing to talk to people on Capitol Hill like Senator Booker and Senator Warner and others. And we will continue to talk to the folks at Facebook who, you know that they now have to talk to us and they have to deal with us. And they recognize that when we come to the table, that we're coming to the table with clear demands and we expect clear results.
And I think I need people to understand. I'm watching our people who are commenting as we speak right now on Periscope and watching them on these different platforms. And this is what I don't think they quite understand, is that by eMarketer predicted in 2018, Google and Facebook will capture nearly 48% of new U.S. digital advertising spending. I've seen some reports where they put it around even 70%. That means two companies literally are grabbing those dollars. The point we're making is that we want to ensure not only are Black consumers being able to be known and heard, Black media companies are getting opportunities to also participate in this, but we also don't see folks being pushed aside. That's why this is critically important, because as we are moving forward with technology, and we're seeing this where broadband is not the future, it's the present. The reality is what we don't want to see is exactly what has happened in the last 100 plus years, where Black media companies and Black folks have been pushed aside and then are left scrapping for a couple of dollars. And the opportunity to be able to present different perspectives, because let's just be clear, it's not like you got shows like this right now on cable news, on broadcast news. Oh, sure, you got a Black person who's hosting, but what people need to understand is they're not deciding what goes on. They're not deciding those guests who are coming on as well. On this show, I decide the stories we cover, where we broadcast from, and having access to these platforms and being supported is important.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes I hear from folks like, on Twitter or other social media, like, why don't you just turn off Facebook? Why do you guys just boycott Facebook? And I'm like, well, sure, if you want to turn off Facebook, that's great. But but Facebook right now has as many users as there are Christians in the world. That's how large this is. So simply telling people to sort of turn it off, that's actually not a realistic expectation for a mother who's starting a business in Tallahassee and wants to reach the marketplace, or for a new journalist that wants to break through and get their story covered, to simply tell them like, okay, this platform's not treating you well, just don't use it. Actually, that is not how civil rights works. When the buses didn't treat us well, we organized and forced them to treat us well, and to treat us fairly. When the lunch counters wouldn't serve us, we went in and we forced them to serve us. And now these new platforms that are being built, and are benefiting from all of the infrastructure in this country, which we as Black people have built. Benefiting from the net neutrality and the cable lines and all of the technology that has been put in the ground to allow for an organization like Facebook to grow and flourish and be the platform that it is, it cannot leave us out. And that is part of the work that we have to do to both fight, to hold them accountable, and to use all of the various levers, right? We turned out in tremendous numbers this election cycle. There are new people heading into Capitol Hill that we put there. Now, they've got to have the hearings. They've got to do the work to bring the Facebook folks up there and to actually dig into all these various ways in which this platform has prevented real progress. And quite frankly, everything from having a culture that hasn't allowed for Black people to flourish, to having a platform that weaponized race during the last election, to how the algorithms on the platform can allow someone to say, I want to rent my apartment, but I don't want to. I want to make sure that no Black people see this rental ad. You can do those things are happening on the platform right now, and unless we do the work to force it to change, it will only get worse. It will only become deeper. And so that is why we felt this is so important. And now sort of being both in the room at the highest levels, but also with a clear understanding that we will continue to hold them accountable, is the sort of gift that Facebook gave us by attacking us, because they really attacked the wrong organization.
Well, and let's also be just honest. The reality is here. In 25 years, we will be a nation majority of people of color. And the reality is the things that you are fighting for today, the things I'm fighting for today, is also recognizing we are a changing America. And companies today, the reality is Facebook is 2 to 4% Black employees. The reality is when Reverend Jackson started his fight against Silicon Valley, it was about opportunity. This isn't about handouts. This isn't about, as you said, please cut me a check. It's like, no, as James Brown said, he said, I'll open the door and I'll get it myself. That's what folks are saying is want to be able to have the opportunity to compete. And so it's holding folks accountable. And what you are doing is no different than what the NAACP did to ABC, NBC, CBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all of these media companies. It's the exact same thing. It's simply a new day.
Yep, absolutely. And you as an independent voice have really helped to move this conversation, right? Because we've even had problems at times getting mainstream media, cable news to cover this story. They are invested and deeply aligned with Facebook. And so some of the ways in which we couldn't get really covered on some of these problems until the New York Times story broke. And even then, they wanted to cover other angles. But part of the reason is folks like you covered it. Our members and people who went to colorofchange.org signed petitions and raised their voices and made us unignorable. And as a result, a public civil rights audit will be coming by the end of the year that will give us the ability to start looking closely and holding them more accountable. More news stories have come out in the last 24 hours about actually things that Sheryl Sandberg and others at Facebook still haven't told us about the attacks they have made on our organization and others. And we recognize that right now we have a mix of momentum that can help us hold this company accountable. That you just mentioned Google. Google is now heading to Capitol Hill next week, and there's going to be hearings on some of their work. The reason why they cut that $5,000 check to Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi,
Yep.
even after she made that comment about lynching, right? And first claimed that they didn't know that she made the comment, which is rich, that Google didn't use Google, right? The reason why these companies are behaving this way is because they are trying to avoid some of the things that are happening in Europe with antitrust, where they're being hit with these fines because they are actually monopolies, and because they and the way monopolies behave is they can cut people out the way that they are doing to you. They can do whatever they want because they've cut out the competition. And so what they are trying to do is avoid that. And they're giving money to both sides. They're giving money to the Democrats and they're giving money to the Republicans. And they think it's all the same. And they think they can just play both sides. And that's also why we need independent voices like you, but we also need independent voices like Color of Change who don't take money from them. Because otherwise what we end up with is this situation where Facebook has decided that they've gotten everyone where they want them and they're going to keep doing what they've always done.
All right, Rashad Robinson, Color Change. We appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Always appreciate you.
All right, folks, let's now cover a story happening close to us here in D.C. At Bowie State, where the president today made a huge announcement dealing with the issue of hazing. Earlier, an exclusive interview with Dr. Aminta Bro, who is the president of Bowie State. Folks, earlier this month, Bowie State announced they were investigating hazing allegations involving their band. Well, now they are releasing those results. Joining us right now is Dr. Aminta Bro. She's the president of Bowie State University. Dr. Bro, glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We've had to deal with hazing all across this country. We remember what happened at Florida State when the drum major there died as a result. We've seen this at predominantly white institutions as well. And so now you've had to now deal with this at your campus. What's the result of that investigation?
Well, as a result of the investigation, we did find that indeed there was hazing occurring. We also uncovered a document that the students know as their constitution that lays out the parameters for hazing to occur. And we're very saddened about the actions that were taken by some of the members of the band. And we're still very much concerned about what has taken place. But the good news is no one was seriously injured. Unlike other incidents that have been reported in the media, we were out ahead of this. As soon as we found out that this was happening, I shut down the band to ensure that we did our due diligence, we investigated. The first priority I have is for the safety of my students. And upon getting the reports, we enacted a probation, a suspension of the ban until we could get to the root of what was going on. So I'm sad to report that indeed we have found evidence that students have been engaging in hazing activities. The good news is no one was seriously injured.
But you do have some results. So obviously the band's been put on probation for a year. Has anyone been suspended, fired as a result of this hazing?
Well, just recently, the band director has stepped down. He has resigned. We are very concerned at this time about what took place, but we've also put into place an educational program. We are going to have the band on probation for a year while they participate in an educational program to help them understand what hazing is about. I still think that for some, they don't understand what we're talking about unless they hear about a death, unless they hear about something more serious. I don't believe they fully comprehend in some respects what we are addressing, and that is when they are asked to perform and practice excessive hours and that they are solely focused on the band to the isolation of all other elements of their life. That's a problem here. Our students are here to learn. They are here, yes, to be a member of the band, but there's an entire campus that they need to participate in. They need to understand that there's a whole other world, and they shouldn't be solely dependent on the leadership of the band, and they need to have some individuality. And unfortunately, there were some behaviors and activities where the freshmen were treated in ways that demeaned them, that humiliated them, and just ran up against those definitions of what we refer to when we're talking about hazing. And so we're going to do a lot of education for these students and the entire campus to ensure that there are clear definitions, clear examples, and our students know when this activity is happening, they need to speak out and say something about it.
How do you also deal with the fact that this is also now a deeply embedded culture? What I mean by that is, you know, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, a lifetime member. We've seen numerous lawsuits. We've seen individuals who have died in fraternities and sororities as a result, but also other bands as well. And there's this whole thinking that somehow, if you don't go through adversity, if you haven't been beaten, if you haven't been demeaned, then somehow you haven't properly earned your credentials to be a fraternity member or to be a band member.
I understand that history, and that was then, this is now. I go back to some of the basics that you learn in kindergarten. Don't put your hands on somebody else. And in today's time, you cannot allow people to harm one another. You can't say, that's okay. I understand what went before. There is a difference between traditions, rituals, and hazing, where people fear, where they are humiliated. This is what we're talking about, and that just can't happen today. There are, as you know, incidents where people have died. That can't be allowed to happen for our youth today. I set a higher bar for my students here at Bowie State, and we should all set a higher bar for our children to understand, our young men and women who are coming to these colleges, to understand that is not what we expect of you. And so, yes, let's honor our history and think about, you know, what that was. But today, there are liabilities, people lose their lives, and we need to keep our young people safe. And that's what I'm about, that as the president of Bowie State University. And I'm going to stand right there, firmly planted on safety of the students.
And when you talk about them being on probation, what does it actually mean when it comes to football, when it comes to basketball games, when it comes to travel? What does that actually mean?
So for the next year, as I mentioned, the students are going to go through an educational experience to help them understand what we're talking about with the differences between rituals and traditions and hazing and harming and humiliating other members of your group. We will also expect that the students only perform here on the campus and as permitted in the local area. They will not be traveling to overnight events and participating in activities off the campus and out of this area. That is to ensure that we have the proper precautions in place as they're traveling, once they resume traveling after their probationary time. So for the next year, education. For the next year, they're going to be local on the campus, a lot of supervision, a lot of support to lift them up, because we want our students to do well, but they will not be performing at the events off campus. So for the where the band, the athletic programs go on the road, they will not be traveling with them, just here on the campus.
Last question. We know that graduates have a lot of involvement still when it comes to our institutions, whether you went through fraternity or sorority or even the band. Are you going to be limiting alumni and their involvement in the band, where individuals may bring, again, those old ways of doing things onto the campus? How will you regulate and deal with that?
Well, it's difficult to regulate interaction with alumni. What I would invite is for the alumni to come in and talk with me about just what we're sharing. Yes, we all know that, you know, things have changed over time. You know, we as a country have evolved beyond when we were founded. Bowie State was founded in 1865. We're very different than what we were in 1865, and we're in a different environment. Things have to change. So I would love to talk with the alumni about what we're doing. They have been advised as we've gone through this process and with the investigation. They were brought into this conversation so that they know what we were looking at, and we've been bringing them along through the conversation and the investigation, just to say, here's what we know, here's what we found, as we have shared with the media and with our students. I've met with the students who are in the band to let them know I'm supportive of them. I want them to succeed. And I want our alumni to come on back. Let's have those conversations. Help me, help these young people understand it's a different day, and it has to be. And we want them to be safe. We want them to be successful and understand the right lessons, the right values for today.
Well, the most important thing that I also say is that whether it's our fraternities or sororities or HBCUs, the last thing we should be doing is spending money on settlements for folks who have been hurt, maimed, or killed as a result of the hazing. Because that, frankly, endangers the future survival of our institutions. And so we appreciate your leadership on this. Dr. Bro, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Roland. Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
All right, folks, time to hear from one of our partners. With the holidays just around the corner, now is the time to order holiday cards for family and friends. Now, you know doggone well, you mail out holiday cards, they come in the mail, and you want to really impress your friends and family or your business folks with that. So this year, you can create custom holiday photo cards quickly, easily, and affordably at simplytoimpress.com. Now, simplytoimpress.com is your holiday photo card headquarters, with thousands of unique Christmas cards and other designs to choose from. Now look, this is very simple. All you do is upload your family photos, or you can get them from Facebook or Instagram, personalize the text, and then you're done. It's that simple. Simplytoimpress.com prints your cards professionally on your choice of premium card stock in just a few days and rushes them straight to your door. The New York Times Wirecutter named Simply to Impress their favorite custom photo card service. Simply to Impress even offers foil cards and hundreds of great holiday card designs for your business as well. Now look, if you place your order today, you'll save 30% and get free shipping. 30% savings and free shipping. All you got to do is enter the promo code DEAL, D-E-A-L, at checkout. Now save big on holiday photo cards today by using the promo code DEAL at simplytoimpress.com. That's simplytoimpress.com. And remember, when you support them, you also are supporting Roland Martin Unfiltered, because they are. All right, folks, December 1st every year, of course, is the day where the world recognizes World AIDS Day. And one of the issues that we look at is the young folks, especially young folks, African Americans, who don't want to get tested. Well, I was on the campus of Morgan State University in Baltimore. I talked with Dr. Larice Edwards, and it was very interesting and talking with her about her research and what she discovered as to why a lot of black folks who live in our inner cities, even in rural areas, why they are not getting tested. Check this out.
Research is basically focused on sexual health and health in general. And I received quite a bit of funding from the government to do a program. And I know for me, I grew up at a time, and you probably did too, where HIV wasn't even around. Mm-hmm. And now that it is, I found out through various innovative ways of stipends and honorariums to get young people to be more cognizant of their sexual health and acquiring HIV and different sexually transmitted infections. And it didn't work. They weren't getting tested. So I want to know why. Why aren't you being tested? I mean, somebody give you a $50 card, gift card, this, that, and the other, trying to make it more appeasing, and putting it in your lap, and it's still not happening. And I found out through a few years of research what are really the primary threats for young kids. And it's pretty sad. It really bothers me that young people today fear excessive police force. They are concerned about community violence and exposure to community violence. They're concerned about the environments that they live in, that they live, work, pray, and play in, the conditions of those environments. They're concerned, and even some of the college kids are concerned about food insecurity and housing insecurity. So that is why I've landed where I am now, working with structural determinants of health as well as social determinants of health, because every kid deserves a good future.
So it's interesting that you were focusing on sexual health in this very broad way, and
Yes.
then all of a sudden said, hold up, this is another,
Right.
because again, there are people out there who are, because if you say HIV/AIDS researcher, well, folks might automatically be thinking, well, that's actually, okay, you're in a laboratory, you're looking for a cure, you're thinking of that. So you're really dealing with the mental aspect
The behavioral
of what is
aspects.
blocking somebody from
Yes.
getting the information, getting and being more aware.
Yes, and that's how we came up with the perceived risk hierarchy theory, because everybody has a risk portfolio.
Say it again, the what?
Perceived risk.
Got it.
Hierarchy theory.
Got it.
Basically, that says the youth and young adults, they prioritize risk, and is for them being confronted by a police officer, being exposed to excessive community violence, gunshots.
So those are on the high end of.
They are on the high end.
And this is considered to be on the low end.
Basically, I had a young man tell me, you want me to be tested for something that I may or may not ever acquire, but my real risk is getting home safe, making sure that I'm not in a crossfire, that nobody tries to rob me and shoot or stab me. Those things are more likely to happen to me than acquiring HIV.
So when he said that, did you go, wow? I mean, was it?
Yeah.
So I always ask this question of book authors and others. I say, what was your wow moment?
Mine.
And you like, what was that wow?
My whoa.
Got it.
My whoa was like, I can't use that word on this show, but I was like,
Actually, you can.
I was like, shit, are you serious? And that's how I came up with the title of my article, None of Us Will Get Out of Here Alive. Because kids, young adults, and youth told me that getting home safely, coming from the movies safely, getting to and from work safely is more of a priority for them than anything else. And the thing that bothers me most about that, Mr. Martin, is that those things get in the way of their ability to remember, to recall, and to learn. Because if you're going to sit in school all day and figure out and navigate how you get home safely, you're not listening and you're not absorbing what's being taught. So that's the part that I'm invested in. And then we got to include historical trauma, the role that historical trauma plays, the role that epigenetics play, cumulative, community, assault, and then adverse childhood experiences. We have to do something about education in this country for black kids. And if we don't, that's why they're going to continue to build detention centers and jails. They're not doing anything about the schools. There was an article in the last week, Afro-American paper here in Maryland, talking about heating the schools, make sure that schools have heat so that kids can come to school. We shouldn't be talking about that.
Which is very basic.
That's a basic need.
If you live in a place where it's cold as hell, you want to have heat.
Yeah, but we're not. There's so much income inequalities, and if you can't get a job, where do you divert to?
See, that's what's interesting, because whenever this conversation about HIV/AIDS, STDs, or even extended to breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, whatever, anything that requires folks actually to have to get checked for it. And then I can even expand this thing when we talk about, people go, well, how hard is it for you to get a voter ID? So then when you start walking people through, it's like, no, this is what you don't quite understand. In your world, this is very simple. This is, look, you get an ID, or you go to the doctor and then you get a checkup. But then it's this whole swath of people who that is deemed, that's abnormal. That's just not a regular part of my life. And I think it truly exposes haves and have-nots. People don't really understand what folks are just going through that is totally different than your experience.
Yes. And if you go back to the Kerner report.
To America's One White, One Black.
Yeah.
50th anniversary this year. Yep.
Yes. I mean, conditions now are worse than they were in 1968. It's just unacceptable. And the people who are really being hit the most and suffer the most are children. The poverty line among children. Even in college. I told a colleague today, as I was getting out of my car to come here, there was somebody standing by me. I was in my trunk and I felt somebody, and I said, "Can I help you? What's wrong?" And he said, it was a student. He said, "Do you have any spare change?" So it's a different world, and it's a different world for young people.
Which might explain when it was a few years ago when the CDC came out with a report talking about the increase of HIV/AIDS on historically black campuses in the South, and folks are like, "Okay, I don't understand your college students," not realizing everything that you just laid out. Like, yeah, you might be at college, but it does not mean you having money sent from home for food and for different things along those lines. And so all those things that you left your neighborhood, you actually brought a lot of that with you when you get to the campus.
Yeah, sometimes you do. And then you have to also look at the structure of the campus. You know, like, my campuses have a lot of students who are from the community, and they commute. So a lot of times they bring the community with them, or they go back to the community. So it's something that we all have to be mindful when we want students and young people to be successful, because they should have a successful life.
So I'll ask you this. So when it comes to you, again, studying why folks don't get tested, I guess what jumped to mind was Dorothy Cotton. Her job was with Dr. King in SCLC, was citizenship education training. You couldn't join the SCLC without going through the training. And reading her book, and I did the last sit-down interview with her before she died earlier this year. What was interesting is when she said, we brought them in, we assessed where they were mentally, and then had to determine what we needed to reprogram to send them out. I've used this phrase a lot when I talk about, I look at our black cable networks, I look at our black sites. We're inundated with entertainment, comedy shows and reality shows, and virtually no news and information. And I keep saying, we have to reprogram Black America. That there has to be a reprogramming. And folks go, dude, that sounds crazy. I'm like, no. And listening to you, that's what I'm hearing. The same thing is like, in order to deal with these realities of what we're facing.
The real reality. The shows are not the real reality. The real reality is the plight that black people make in certain communities to live and make it from day to day. And for students to try to come to campus to increase their knowledge and a skill level so that they can be marketable outside of the campus. These are the things that we have to deal with. I mean, it's just mind-boggling how some things don't get addressed as they should, and how we are deflected in other areas. Those are the real things. And sometimes we just take a whole lot for granted. But yeah, we need to do some reprogramming, some relearning, and as my pastor would say, quicker than yesterday and sooner than right now.
All right, folks, so we certainly appreciate Dr. Edwards in that conversation there. Of course, as a history professor at Morgan State. So what the heck? This is going to be our HBCU Giving Day School. Roll it. Again, hashtag HBCU Giving Day. Morgan State is our university in Baltimore, Maryland, founded in 1867. Famous graduates include Kwesi Mfume, former head of the NAACP, former member of Congress, also Earl Graves Sr., founder of Black Enterprise, the playwright David E. Talbert, and of course Wilson Good, the mayor of Philadelphia. To support Morgan, go to www.morgan.edu. Plus, you can support them because their president is a member of the greatest fraternity of all time, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And so certainly shout out to them. And if you're a Morgan graduate, we also expect you to also give back to the university. And so we certainly appreciate that. And just for folks who don't know, we started hashtag HBCU Giving Day as a way to encourage more folks to give to HBCUs, because we had Florida A&M University on TV One's News One Now. Their national alumni president talked about the fact that only 5% of Florida A&M graduates were giving back to the university. And so this is our way every day to offer a reminder to folks to give back, but also to give you a little history about our various HBCUs. And so we appreciate that. All right, folks, on Monday on HBO, there's going to be a documentary that is going to deal with the life of Sandra Bland. Remember, she was a 28-year-old black woman from Chicago who was arrested for a traffic violation in Prairie View, Texas. Of course, location of Prairie View A&M University. Sandra, of course, was going down there. She was had a new job, and she was down only there for a few days. But she was arrested for no reason whatsoever. After 3 days in custody, she was found hanging from a noose in her jail cell. Her death was quickly ruled a suicide, but many people, of course, across the country were shocked and stunned, saying that it was potentially racially motivated. Her story, something that we covered extensively on my previous show. And again, that documentary is going to be this Monday. And so here is a part of the documentary.
Sandy called me on July 11th to let me know that she had been arrested. I said, what are you in jail for? She said, you know, I really don't know. And she said, my arm is hurting really bad. And I could hear her talking to the guards in the background. Then she said, I'll call you back. And she hung up the phone, and she never called back. I wouldn't wish this hurt on anyone. Anyone.
Documentary is called Say Her Name, The Life and Death of Sandra Bland. And earlier this week, I talked with the director, David Heilbronner, as well as the Bland family attorney, Kenan Lambert, about this documentary. So David and Kenan, let's talk about this documentary here. Obviously, it's a story that I covered extensively. So David, I'll start with you. Was there a surprise? Was there anything that you did not know before that really jumped out at you when working on this documentary?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that jumped out at me was Sandra Bland herself. You know, I got to know who she was as a person, because going in, I knew what everybody knew. I knew about the dash cam. I knew about the really suspicious circumstances surrounding her hanging, the police attempt to slander her, but I didn't get a feeling for her character until I dug into her Sandy Speaks videos, until I got to know her family. And that was really what inspired me and my wife and co-director Kate, you know, made us really feel like there was an important story to tell, that there was someone behind this statistic about one more, you know, black death at the hands of the police. This person was someone that history had to remember. She was amazing.
Kenan, when you think about this story and how it developed, and then when people begin to see those videos, to see someone recording videos, sharing their thoughts, their innermost feelings about police stops and things along those lines, and then all of a sudden her becoming, in essence, a story and others doing their own videos about her, quite eerie.
It is so prophetic. It is extremely eerie. If somebody can be that powerful, that strong, and it can happen to her, I think that's what resonates with everybody. We understand that it could happen to anybody. And that's what drives so many people in their interest in seeing better. And that's what she calls for in the documentary. I mean, she calls for better. She calls for us to step up. She calls for us to take our seat at the table and do something as opposed to sit on your hands.
One of the things that was, as we were reporting on the story, probably maybe it was a week or so after she died, when her sister posted a photo, because we'd actually met. I spoke at a women's expo in Chicago. And then when she posted the photo, I mean, I remembered the scenario, because she's a very tall woman.
Yeah.
And then when I met her mother at the Congressional Black Caucus, we did an interview with her mother, and her mother said, oh my God, she absolutely loved watching your show, and she always said she was going to be on your show one day. And for her to get to be on the show in this way was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought a lot about what's happened, what this film might do to Sandy's legacy. In fact, what her story has done. It's this terrible irony that here's a woman who had so much to contribute, who did these video blogs that, you know, a handful of people had seen, and she had to die in jail, you know, to become a national figure. She would be smiling now if she were looking down on it, because this is what she wanted. I don't know if she wanted this to be the way she got there. You know.
Ken, I've studied that videotape, and to this day, why did that trooper stop her?
Well, I mean, I think that's the question that so many of us have. He didn't have basis. And you know that because you can look at his own words. He didn't know what to arrest her for. She says in the video, "Why? I'm not under arrest. You don't have a right." And then he says, "You are under arrest." And she says, "For what?" And you see him later looking and talking to his supervisor, trying to figure out what she's under arrest for.
See, most people, when they play the videotape, they pick up on the videotape either two places. When he's about to pull her over, and then when he's pulling on the car door. But when I've run that tape back, I've seen it from the perspective of when she pulls out of the parking lot on the Prairie View A&M campus. And again, I've watched it. She literally pulls out. She makes no lane change. There's nothing. He was dealing with somebody else. He turns his car around.
Boom.
He follows her, and it's sort of like, okay, I'm gonna wait till you do something. Then he still pulls her over, and again, I'm going.
Yeah, man.
There was nothing there to even be pulled over.
But see, I would go so far as to say he did things to help and to create the situation.
Oh, absolutely.
He rushes up on her and then forces her to get over for the purposes of getting out of his way, and she even says so. And I think that's the broader issue, right? The broader issue is that you can be driving your car, anybody, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, and minding your own business, and then get stopped by the police and then subjected to something that can go woefully wrong. And you know, you ask yourself, why did this situation serve as a rallying cry? And I think it served as a rallying cry for a myriad of reasons, but it really has to do with the fact that we can all see ourselves in Sandy. In this documentary that was done, one of the things that's most impressive to me in the way that they put it together is that they let Sandy speak, and she does so in an eloquent way.
David, you have police officers who understand they have complete authority. Yeah. And he knew, again, if you study that videotape, if you just watch it, and he knows that he is agitating her. He knows that he is provoking her. And then he knows exactly. This is not like somebody who was smoking in her car and then she turns and blows a cigarette in his face.
Yeah.
When he says, put the cigarette out, and she says no, he knew by being an officer that even if it's an unlawful command, the law says you have to obey.
Yeah. You know, people talk about that. I mean, everyone's looked at that stop, 6 ways to Sunday. What a lot of people say about it is that, well, if Sandy had just behaved herself and shut up, but, they're not really looking at it very carefully because that's just what she did. She gets stopped. He says, license and registration. She gives him license and registration. 5 minutes pass. He comes back. He says, here you go. She doesn't say anything. Then he says, you look irritated.
Right.
And she says, well, I am.
Well, yes.
Then she tells why, and she stops talking. Time passes. He goes, are you done? Now,
yes.
When my wife and I have an argument, if either of us says, are you done?
In that tone.
It's over, man.
Everybody knows what that tone is.
What it means.
And he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. And then she says, she's still keeping her cool. She goes, yeah, I'm done. You asked me what was wrong. I told you. More time passes. She's still not doing anything. So when people say, why didn't she just shut up and behave? She did, and this guy just kept coming at her.
Right.
Coming at her.
And then
finally,
he goes,
she said,
put the cigarette out.
And then she says, why do I have to? She didn't say no. She says, why do I have to put it out? And that's when he pulls the car out.
Boom.
By the way, the other part of it is that people talk about her cursing. She didn't start cursing until he pulled her out of the car after pointing a taser at her.
He slapped her face.
Well, he did that too.
Yeah.
He did that too. And I think the documentary makes that clear too. There's a lot of things about this piece that was done that really help people understand the totality of the situation. It's one of the reasons why I think it's so important that people watch the film.
And then also the issue of cash bonds.
Yeah.
Because it was interesting to me the number of people who kept saying, well, my goodness, they just couldn't find the $500. Look, there are a lot of people in this country who, if something happens, just can't go grab $500.
And by the way, if you're in one state and you've got to go 4 states down to get to the person you're trying to get to, that's a problem. It's difficult to do. And it was a day and a half. It wasn't a long period of time that we're talking about. It wasn't like they were non-responsive. They were responsive. And so, again, the thing that I really feel that we need to pull out of this is that there's a broader narrative that we have to make sure that we stay focused on, because there's a conversation to have. We've got to have a conversation about what it is to de-escalate. These questions you're asking about the video speak directly to de-escalation,
right,
and the need to have de-escalation. If you don't have de-escalation, then what do you have? You have chaos. And what we saw out on that road was chaos, and the chaos leads to people losing their lives.
Again, folks, the documentary, Say Her Name, is going to be airing on HBO on Monday, so we certainly hope you tune in and watch that, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Sandra Bland. All right, folks, last night on TNT, all across the NBA, they were honoring Craig Sager, of course, the longtime reporter, sideline reporter who lost a battle with cancer. Anybody who knew Craig Sager knew he wore the most outlandish clothes that even Judge Craig Strong in Detroit would not be seen wearing. That's the inside joke from my frat brother. So last night, and I caught this online. I saw it, and as a matter of fact, I was just texting Charles Barkley about this. And so last night on NBA TNT, all the studio analysts, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, they were all wearing clothes to honor Craig Sager. And this happened.
And we welcome you to TNT NBA Tip-Off presented by Auto Trader.
Damn.
No, that's
damn.
That's solid. That's solid, Sager.
That's solid too. Yeah, I like that. That's solid too.
And
Scott, where'd you get that idea from, kid?
Well, Roland Martin, he was royalty, so Craig Sager was royalty.
My man, Mr. Yeah, I like that look.
Now, see that? See, and so I saw it, and I sent Kenny a text, and I was like, "Really, Kenny? You could now, you know, everybody know I'm the Ascot King. Everybody know. And I got a turtleneck on right now, but everybody know I'm the Ascot King. In fact, I'm the leader of hashtag Ascot Nation. That's why when y'all see Charles Woodson on Monday Night Football on ESPN rocking the Ascot, he know where it came from. But how Kenny gonna sit here and then didn't want to give a brother any credit? But see, thank goodness my man Charles Barkley was there, showing me some love and correcting Kenny, saying exactly where he got it from. So everybody know that's the deal. And so that's how we roll. And so Kenny, stop hating and go ahead and give a brother some credit for inspiring you to wear the ascot. And if you want, I'll send you one from my line, because you know that's how I roll. And so, Chuck, I appreciate that, bro. Thank you so very much. All right, folks, and see, that plays right into our next story. Of course, it's always about when you are black, it's about having some style. And, of course, this summer when I was in New York, I had a chance to sit down with my girl, Constance White. She's the former editor of Essence Magazine, and she has her book out. It is called How to Slay, Inspiration from the Queens and Kings of Black Style. And, yeah, Kenny, don't be a hater. You know when it comes to the ascot, I'm one of the kings of style. And so, folks, here's our conversation with Constance White. I certainly hope you guys have a great weekend. I'm going to see you Sunday in Indianapolis for our School Choice is the Black Choice conversation at the Indianapolis Public Library. So I can't wait to see all of you at Indianapolis. And Eastern Star, I'm going to see y'all at Reverend Jeffrey Johnson's church on Sunday. As soon as I land, I'll see y'all guys there as well. So y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy this conversation with Constance White. Holla! All right, Constance, how you doing?
I'm doing so well. I'm ready to slay.
What is black style?
Black style is a feeling. It's also something concrete, how we put ourselves together. It's how the black community has really shaped how they want to present themselves and then influence practically the world.
See, the reason I asked that, when I was news editor of Savoy magazine, we did they wanted to do a photo shoot. So I mentioned pastors.
Okay.
And I remember I was going back and forth with the folks there because the fashion people, they were like, well, you know, the way these preachers dress, that's not fashion. I said, okay. I said, let me help you out. I said, black people are not sitting here focused on what somebody's wearing on the runway.
Right.
I said, but when you have, because I think in that particular issue we did, I know Bishop Jakes was in it, I know Bishop Eddie Long was in it, I know a couple others. And I said, trust me, when you have 5, 6, 10,000 people watching somebody every Sunday, they are paying attention to what that pastor is wearing.
Yes.
I said, so y'all can call it what you want to. They say, we're not going to call it fashion, we'll call it style. I said, I don't care what you call it.
Same thing. It doesn't matter
matters
what
to
you
black
call
people.
It does. And I will say, Black people are looking at the runway, but they are also looking at that pastor. And not only is it 600 to 6,000, 10,000 people, and it's going to have an impact, but also it's aspirational. When you see your pastor in church, you're looking at, okay, so this is what, you know, success looks like, this is what a leader looks like, this is what a good man looks like. So that has great impact. And it is style, and there is a style to both men and women and our Sunday best, how we put ourselves together.
And the reason it was we were going back and forth on it, because I was trying to get them to understand that Black folks, we don't conform to someone else's standard of what they consider to be stylish or consider to be fashionable. No, we've always did our own thing, and everybody else said, oh, we like that.
We like that, and we're going to adapt it, and we can repackage it and sell it, and all of that too. And that's one of the things that I hope that How to Slay shows, is it shows how we're so creative. The impact and the fertility in our communities around style. And I think a big part of it is because of what you said, because we don't need to conform to what's outside. And sometimes you're making something from nothing, which is always a place to come from, to be extremely creative. And another time it's about, you know what, this is who I am. I think a lot of it has to do, the reason that the Black community is such an incredible fountain of inspiration and style for the rest of the world, is because a lot of the time we're saying, well, you know what, this is how I want to put myself out there. And it's very individual, it's very original.
Also, I think it's a matter of also when you begin to put stuff together. If you don't have much, your whole deal is like, okay, that's what I got, so let's see what I can put together and make this thing work. And so all of a sudden, when it comes together, folks are like, oh, how'd you do all of that? Oh,
wow, that's right. I just
threw something together. I mean, but the creativity comes out in that whole process.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, Black style, we care about how we look. We care about how we put ourselves together. And whether it's something very casual, pants falling off the butt, or it's something very formal, like the pastor, your Sunday church, we care about how we look, you know, for better or worse.
Now, in this book, you didn't focus just on celebrities.
No.
It was a mix, and also it's not all contemporary. You wanted to be able to sort of give this wide range of Black folks.
Yes. So there are the celebrities, but it definitely, in my process, definitely did not start, or end for that matter, with celebrities. I was really looking at where are the places that Black people have made an impact, and how can I show that in a visual way. And what I would often come upon are some photographs of a celebrity, but more often than not, even as we know, the celebrity is looking at the everyday person who he or she grew up with, or, you know, they're looking at their sister, or they're looking at the person who they thought was really stylish next door. So there are a lot of people who are not necessarily famous in any way at all, but are just epitomes of great style.
And also, you look at these photos, folks from the motherland, in terms of these vivid, rich colors in these different outfits. Also, I think was also interesting.
Yes, thank you. There's a historic perspective, and then there's taking it back to Mother Africa historically, as well as contemporary outfits. And right now, the impact of things like Holland cloth and turbans is huge around the world. And, you know, here in America, we see, you know, you go to Brooklyn and you probably look at some outfits and you wonder, like, okay, is that person from Brooklyn, or are they from Ghana or Liberia, or where? It's such an intermingling and such an influence.
So when Black Panther, when they had the screening, and they asked folks to wear African royal attire, what I thought would be interesting is when I saw all these different outfits, I just started laughing because I made my first visit to Africa when I went to Accra, Ghana in 2008. Okay. And even before that, there were a number of different African outfits I had. And I've gone to places and then Black folks are going, man, what do you have on? And I go, well, this is African royal attire. I'll wear that, whether it's a CBC dinner or whatever, because sometimes I got 5 tuxedos, but I don't want to wear them. And the thing that I would tell people is I can wear this anywhere. So I found it interesting when they did that, folks were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! All of these colors." And I'm sitting here going, we've been doing that kind of like a while. and what I also said, I'm hopeful that African Americans will then, whether it's the Golden Globes or the Oscars or others, will say, "Wait a minute, we don't only have to wear this to the Black Panther premiere. Let's wear this. Let's rock this.
Let's wear this." And there are two important points that you made. One, which I believe are illustrated in the book. Number one is we've been doing this. Like, this is part of the Black history and culture, and at any point you can make it modern and contemporary, or at any point you can wear it as something, a historic reference. And it's there. It's there for the taking. It's very powerful. Number two, would someone think about, oh, I can, wear this to the Oscars and wear it on the red carpet? This is one of the reasons that Lupita Nyong'o is so popular and has really touched and been felt by a lot of women around the world, across the board, but especially Black women, because she does bring it. She's like reaching back to her culture, her African culture, and bringing the hairstyles and the looks. And that's also a way that she's made herself very original, right? And you take notice of her.
Do you also encourage folks to not give a damn what other people think? Because what happens is a lot of times folks will I remember Mark Lamont Hill and I, we were messing around, and we were at NABJ, this was 2013.
Right.
And I got Journalist of the Year.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I had this red, black, and white feather pocket square.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh man, I couldn't wear that." And I said, "Well, first, I don't dress for any dudes, so I'm fine." I'm like, and so he. Do
you see where I say something like that in the book too? Do you see where I talk a little bit about that too, like dressing, women historically dressing for men, and then men dressing for women? And
I'm just like, but I was trying to get him to understand is, I don't care what somebody else's think. When I put it on, I like it. I feel good. I'm not trying to impress you. And I think also when you talk about this individuality, it's about what makes you feel good. If you walk out that door and you feel good, I don't care if you don't like the feather pocket square. Somebody will.
Somebody will like it, beginning with you.
Right.
And I think that's important. It's important to mental health, and it's important to how we present ourselves in style, because if you're feeling uncomfortable about something, if you are looking for approval from someone, that is a really difficult and hard place to be in.
That's why for me, so if we're going out, they always say, tell a guy, don't be honest if your wife or your woman asks you, how does it look? I said, no, I'm real honest. I don't like it. Or clothes don't work.
But then does she change because you don't like it?
No, my whole deal, I said, look, you wearing it. But my deal is, don't ask me for my opinion. But I will say this here. I think one of my nieces did this. We were going somewhere, and she was constantly pulling. I said, you got to take it off.
Yeah.
I said, because the rest of the night, that's what you're going to be doing. Right. Because you're so self-conscious about it. If you're self-conscious about something, my deal is take it off, put on something that makes you comfortable, and go. Because the rest of the night, you're jacked up because you're self-conscious the whole night.
Yes.
Can't have fun.
That can't work. You've got to be comfortable in your clothes, just like you're comfortable in your own skin. And looking for approval is not the same thing as dressing appropriately, right? So you may say, okay, I'm going to the office, right? Or I'm going for an interview, or I have an important meeting today. And I think it's quite acceptable and is wise to think about what's appropriate to what you're trying to do, right? How are you trying to make an impact?
What would you say to a young man or a young woman, and they're trying to find their way, and they're so caught up in this idea of what their peers are saying about what they're wearing? Because that could stunt somebody's creativity right there. Okay, I don't want to take any chances. I'm just going to just fall in line with everybody else. What would you tell them?
I would tell them, first of all, think about yourself. Think about what appeals to you, think about what you feel comfortable in, and start there. Now, it's also not helpful to deny the fact that, because you did say young, right? So you can't really deny the fact of biologically what happens when we become teenagers and peer pressure starts to set in. So no one wants to have their peers laugh at them, but you know what? Sometimes that's okay. And I think that's something to communicate, that sometimes someone's laughing at you because they're insecure because of the problems they're having internally or when they go home. And you can't buy into that. You have to
I told them to go to hell.
What?
I told them to go to hell.
You tell them that that's what they should tell the person.
No, that's what I did.
Yeah, when you were there,
literally,
right, you told them to go to hell.
I didn't give a damn what they thought. Because I rarely wore jeans, and to this day, if you ever see me in jeans, I guarantee you, I will have cowboy boots on. But I will never, you will never see me in jeans without cowboy boots.
Yeah.
I don't wear jeans. I just don't like it.
Okay.
And so oftentimes I wore slacks. I might wear ties, whatever, to school.
Right.
And folks like, oh my God, laughing at me. I'm like, okay, you know I don't care what y'all think.
Right.
I mean, literally, I was in the junior high school.
I think you have to give kids, you have to arm kids. You said kids. We as adults, we want to help them, of course, and you want to arm them with language, with weaponry. Because if you just say, oh, don't pay attention to, what Jane is saying or what Laquan is saying, or kind of leaves them in a place like, okay, don't pay attention. But then you're in the heat of the moment and what should I do? I think you have to arm them, like you're saying, with what do I say? What's the language? What do I look? Yes, think about, or how do I look? Like, yes, think about what your body language is and so on too, but you want to give them some language, a script, because a lot of times, and psychologists have borne this out, that a lot of times you want to know what exactly to say. So yeah, that's fair and helpful if you say go to hell, or you say, I don't care what you think, even if they're not feeling it, at least they have something to say.
So how about this here? So when it comes to style, when it comes to, as you say, how to slay, what do you say to folks to not get caught up in rampant commercialism? Understanding, when First Lady Michelle Obama, there was some outfit she wore, and they would say, that's a $40 outfit? Oh my God, what is she doing?
Like $1 million.
Right, and because I think what happens is we also have been raised or sort of bred to think that, oh no, the most expensive, that's what you go for. And you have these people who are killing themselves when you can put together the unbelievable outfit, it's not costing you an arm and a leg.
Right. I think there are a couple of things. When you think about, it goes back to what we were talking about with regard to what do you tell young people? It's the same thing with adults. Like, where are you getting your sense of self from? Is it coming from internal strength, which you are born with? We're all born okay, right? And we're all children of the Most High, and we're okay? Or are you coming from a place of, I get my strength from outside, what people say I am, how people view me, what people think of me. And so it begins there, and that's deep, but it's not all that hard if you focus on it. But if you just go around sort of unwoke and you don't see all the things that are impacting you, yes, that's going to be a tough road to hoe. So it begins there. The second part of it is practically saying, listen, hey, you can have style. Money doesn't equate with style. There are people in this world who have tons of money, right? And no style.
I was in Chicago. That was this guy. We
won't tell any names.
No. First of all, I completely forgot his name.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and so he had asked me where I get my suits from, and I said, I buy them from here. And he, you don't get yours tailored? I said, no. And so he says, oh, well, my suits are $2,000, and my shirts are $200, and my shoes are $500. He's going on and on. And I'm looking at him, and I'm going, damn, you wasted a lot of money. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because it was, literally, and that was his thing. And I'm just sort of looking at it, I'm going, I don't really care. And it was as if how much it cost was driving it.
Right.
As opposed to, but the reality is, he was complimenting me on how my stuff was put together, and literally my whole outfit from head to toe collectively wasn't $500.
Which is great, and we want to share that information. I think that was the power of what you did in that moment, and that's the power of Michelle Obama, where she'll share that information when she was on that worldwide platform and say, this is a Naeem Khan dress or a Jason Wu dress, and it costs $4,000, or we'd find that out, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, she was afraid to say, this is a $50 dress, right? And this is a little brooch I put on it. And I think that was really empowering for all of us, for across the board, black and white, but particularly for black women, to say that. Because yes, in our community, we don't want to get caught up in the brand names and saying, and also, here's a really, really important point. We don't want, in the digital age, in the age of the internet, where people can create these fake lives and fake personas, where, okay, I just went and got this pair of shoes, and I'm telling you that it's Gucci, but it's not really Gucci. Or, you know, I just got this Dior, and I bought it, but I'm taking it back tomorrow. And then we start to think, oh, that's the way to be successful. That's the way to get likes. That's the way to, and that's real. That is happening for real.
Oh, the folks who rent a plane for 3 hours and
pose in it and take a
pose
picture.
in. I'm like, really?
Yeah. And the New York Times did a fantastic expose the other day, which some of us within the internet business knew already that, yes, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of fake followers online with our celebrities, people we admire, and there's a lot of hokey pokey going on. But they did a real expose that really broke it down, the extent to which, I mean, and it's not illegal, except in some cases they're capturing people's identities.
Right.
And that is illegal. But there are a lot of people, you can go hire one to really jack up the number of followers and likes and so on you have. So it's all part of being woke and understanding what is pressing on you and the impact, and that there is an alternative of reality. The reality is a tiny slice of people can't afford to dress in designer clothes, especially head to toe. But what I love about what's happening now is you can now, in the borrow and share and rent economy, you can rent all this stuff. You know, so why not? So you don't have to spend a lot of money if what you want is sometimes to be in designer clothes, if you value that.
So give me an example of you in a store and you saw something and then you went, nah, but then you circle back and then you begin to sort of put something together. You have one of those stories where you looked at something and you went, I could start with this.
I could start with
and I can build on this. Because, I mean, people ask me sometimes, they say, well, man, like I'll get, like, who's your stylist? I'm going, me. Okay, I'm not, I don't need somebody to dress me. I mean, my daddy taught me how to dress. But they would ask me, well, what do you start with? And sometimes I might start with the tie and then build everything from there.
Right.
Or I might start with the shirt and build everything from there. Sure. So whatever this time when you were just in shopping, whatever, you saw something and then you went, I can do this. And I put it with that. Then put it with that. And all of a sudden, something just happened.
Something's popping. Something's happening. Well, I tend to, if I do that and I have done it on a few occasions, I tend to do that with shoes. But my that shoe and then. But my most recent experience of doing that was with a baseball jacket. And I was in the store and I was thinking, and I saw this baseball jacket and I thought, oh, that's really cute. And then I started thinking, I could put that with that. And if I paired it with this. And then I also started thinking about where would I wear it, and could I wear it, across from winter and then across to spring. And because I like my clothes to work for me.
Right.
I don't like it because I have enough clothes that just sit there for years.
Your deal is not that seasonal stuff?
I do like the trans-seasonal, right? Not
right,
the seasonal.
right.
Yes, yeah. I'm not like a particular seasonal shopper.
Well, is it because the reason I asked that, I think it was Father's Day, my dad's birthday or whatever. And so we went to this men's store. And I don't particularly like people helping me when I shop.
Okay.
My philosophy is, if I call you,
I need your help. Otherwise, stand back.
I don't really need you I don't really need you advising. I don't need you. I'm good.
Yeah.
Just stay away.
Okay.
So we're sitting there and I got a suit and so I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like, okay, I want that shirt. And then I go and I'm looking. So I tell the sales guy, I say, hey, I need you to go get that tie off that mannequin 2 rows over. And he goes, oh, that's not going to go together. I said, I did not ask your opinion. I said, one, it is going to go together. I need you to go get it.
Right.
And so he looks at me, and so he comes back. So I put it with the shirt, and I said, see, do you see that pinstripe that's in that suit, which you did not see? I said, the tie and the shirt pulls the pinstripe out. I told you this was going to go together. And so then I'm sitting there, of course, with the socks, and then, of course, shoes. But it was hilarious to me because I'm buying it for my dad. He's there.
Oh, you're buying for your dad, not for yourself. Okay.
Buying for my dad.
Yeah.
He's there.
Yes.
And so I'm putting this whole thing together, and I start laughing because this is simply in reverse of what happened when I was growing up.
Oh, right.
Where
he would shop
we
for
had
you.
to stand there,
Right.
and we didn't have input. He was kind of like, I'm paying for this, so he would be, okay, here's a suit, so here's a belt. So we like, how about this, Dad? No. And so
But
was
Roland, you sound like you could do some styling.
Here's what there are some things that do great on me.
Yes.
And one, what drives me crazy, especially young African Americans, I don't want a young African American going into a men's store and buying a one-time only suit. What I mean is, you could only wear that suit really one time.
Right.
And just so I was in.
What suit? Give me an example. of that. What suit can you only wear one time?
So young man comes into a men's store and he is trying to convince his mom to get that cream suit with a red pinstripe.
You can wear. Got it.
And I'm like,
true.
Dude, I'm saying you're gonna wear it more than one time, but what? So I was in another men's store in Chicago.
Right.
It was two young brothers, and I'm trying to mind my own business. But they're calling home to see if they can buy something. and the dude behind the counter, he's going along with it. I said, yo, man, why you gonna let them buy that rust suit?
Yes.
I said, my deal is if you're under 18, under 18 and you have limited money, this is just my belief, you should only buy a gray suit, a blue suit, or a black suit.
Right.
Which allows you to get multiple shirts, multiple ties.
Yes.
And I was ticked at the dude who worked there because I felt that's where he should say something.
Right.
To say, young man, let me help you out.
Right.
I know you like.
That's great, but I will say, arguably,
They didn't have the money.
They what?
They didn't have the money.
Okay, but arguably they could, and I agree with you, right? That is the suit you just described. The three are probably the most versatile, but arguably, with the right point of view and style, you could take that rust suit or that cream suit with the red pinstripes and make it work.
But they ain't got enough
the
shoes.
Only thing
See,
not enough shoes. That is the thing. The only thing about it is
if you only got
going and coming.
If you only got enough money for a pair of black shoes, that ain't gonna go with that cream suit with the red pinstripe. And that's why it's so. And I've seen.
So did you say something?
Yes, I did. Oh hell, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Now the one time,
did they appreciate it? Or they
yeah.
were like,
oh no, several times. I mean, I was in another store and the woman, she was a sales associate, and the outfit was horrible, and she was rolling with it, and I'm sitting looking at some ties. I'm going, oh my God, I know he is not gonna get that tie to go with that shirt and that jacket and those pants. And I'm trying to mind my business. I said, bro, I can't let you walk out of that store with that. I said, ma'am, I need you to step back for a second. Bro, this does not go together. She was not gonna tell you anything.
Yeah.
But I can't let you walk out the store.
Okay.
I said, because a woman gonna see you and start laughing at you.
And he listened?
Yeah, so I was literally, and he was, because, he was like, really? I said, yes. I said, let me show you. This shirt, this pattern. Do you see this? I said, you see all this is clashing? And so then when I showed him the option, he was like, whoa. Now, one time a woman got mad. She was there. She was with her husband.
And you started talking.
And I'm minding my business buying a shirt. And the brother said, man, let me ask you a question. He said, what you think about this here? I said, I wouldn't get that shirt. And he was like, what? It was like a brown suit. It was for Easter.
Right.
I said, you really should get a blue shirt. I said, sky blue shirt. He's like, what? I said, give me that shirt. Let me show you. Okay. So I put it together, and he said, man.
That's great.
She was mad.
Why?
Because she didn't put it together.
Oh.
She was.
Traditionally, women do most of the shopping.
Well, I ain't that it. See, my daddy.
That's changing a bit, but it's still very powerful. Probably like at this point. 50,
No,
50.
she was really.
She was upset.
She was upset. Yeah. And the brother and I. Then I also told him. I said, bro, do me a favor. I said, you under 65, you cannot wear the pocket square. That's the same pattern as your tie. That's a personal thing of mine. My philosophy, if you're 65 or older, you can wear that pocket square and match the tie. I said, go with a solid color. Oh, it was so funny.
We have another, and I just want to say, though we can't see it on camera, what Roland's wearing today with his blue, which you can see on camera. I love that pleated. I don't know if the camera picks that up.
This is a Shabori pocket square.
Pocket square.
So I saw.
And then the blue
yeah,
Cowboy
I gotta
boots, which
wear
are pretty
the
fabulous.
blue eel. Gotta wear the blue eel. Gotta wear the blue eel. So you know.
No, don't put them on my book.
No, I didn't put it on the book.
But
I
you
put it right
on
here.
the coffee table.
I put it on the coffee table.
Pretty fabulous.
I didn't put it on the book.
Oh, wait, leave it up there. We need to put it next to, leave it up there, because those are how to slay. Okay, so here we go. There's a picture. Yeah.
There you go.
Fabulous.
I will wear cowboy boots with suits.
And I like that. That's personal. That's like part of that, like personal
Then I'm
style,
from Texas
right?
too.
Yeah,
so
from
you
Texas.
know. So then again, I don't care.
Culturally, and you know.
Right.
Yeah,
It always works. So I got to ask you this here.
Yes.
Lots of kids in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love the black and white. It probably was from Chicago.
Right.
All the bras with the hats, they were
glad
clean.
you love that.
Well, it's a
Glad you bring
flashback
that up.
because
It's from the
me and my
50s,
brothers,
from
we
50s,
wore
yeah.
my parents dressed us.
Yeah.
And I have photos of us suited and booted.
Formal,
And-
suited and booted.
And those brothers were clean.
They're clean. I love that photo. I'm glad you mentioned that. From the 40s or 50s. And then the way we put it together with the art director is when you turn the page, so first you see like 4 or 5 little boys, right? And then and as you said, they're like definitely clean, slayed, everything. And then you turn the page and you see these 3 grown men. Also, you see the love and camaraderie between them. And they're dressed and they're sharp. I think you'd approve, right? And it's Future, Jay-Z, and DJ Khaled.
Now I got to ask you this.
So I love that juxtaposition.
What is it you don't like when you go out, you see folks got on stuff?
And I see.
So when you see, you go, like, I'm
I don't
fine.
have strong reactions
Yes, you
like
do.
that.
Yes, you do.
I
You know you.
don't.
Like you mentioned earlier, the pants hanging off. I'm fine with the pants kind of hanging off.
All right,
I'm not trying to
got me.
see
You
your
got
ass.
me. Okay.
I'm like, especially the other day, this brother, he was holding up. It was
Okay.
damn down to his thighs, and
Right.
I'm like, you know, if you just pull the pants up and tighten the belt,
You said that to him?
you ain't
said
got to carry
something?
it. I'm just saying. He's in the store. He's literally shopping, and he's got one.
And he had one
he's
hand.
holding up, and he's trying to put it in the back. You know you can use 2 hands.
What are you
You
saying?
can use nothing. But I'm like,
Probably like-
you can use 2 hands.
Okay, you got me there. So here's what I don't like. I don't have a big problem
Right.
with the pants falling off the butt. I don't. I go with the flow of, okay, fashion. But you cannot be wearing that style when you are over 30.
Yes, I've seen.
This is where it's getting real.
Yeah.
You know, you can see the guys who like, well, I was 16 when hip hop hit with full force. And it's like, you are now damn well 46. And you're still showing me your underwear while you're
Right.
shopping in the CVS with, your jeans or your pants, your
Right.
tracksuit, your dirty gray sweats, whatever it is, falling down, from your underpants and your butt. I don't care if it's your butt crack or your underpants. They're both equally offensive.
Over 30.
When you're like 46. It's like, stop.
Use the
That's
belt.
just not a look. Use a
Use the belt.
Not cute, not a look. You're not 16, whatever.
Unhemmed
And
pants.
those kids aren't even wearing it that much anymore.
Unhemmed pants.
Unhemmed pants? Now,
When
are
it's
you
a-
talking about like an unhemmed pair of suit
I'm
pants?
talking about when is a bunch at the bottom.
Okay, that they didn't cut it and fit it. That really bothers you?
No, because you're going. You do know it's like
it's
it's gathered. It's like your legs are stacked.
I feel more empathy with that. I feel like that is a role. No, okay, now I'm not blowing smoke here
I got
in
it.
any direction with what I'm about to say. I'm just saying, you really have a future in. No, I'm serious. I'm so serious as a judge. A book, and then the whole 9 yards. The book, the website, and if you want to buy it, you can license it with someone or whatever. If you want to purchase, you can purchase too. Because you really, you talked about the puddle, some guys just don't know. I feel more empathy than anything else.
So, especially
and then
young
also
guys.
you think, young guys, and then also, yes, especially young guys, because also they didn't grow up in the community where there was a tailor down the block or in the house next
Right.
door, et cetera. So there's also this disconnect between, well, even if I do know, how much is it going to cost me to go get these pants cut in half? Not a lot, but
Right.
we don't necessarily know that or know
If they're still
it's
growing,
important.
I understand. One shoe 20, let me holler at you. 8 and 8, 6 and 6. Get them pants hem. Cuff, no cuff, take your pick. And look, for me, look, my dad was blue collar, worked at Amtrak, but he dressed.
Yeah.
And we dressed. And so in terms of, you know,
it doesn't really matter I think in the black community, it doesn't really matter what your station is in life
No.
in terms of education.
He got
or
dressed
your
to
job
go
or
grocery
your
shopping.
income. Yeah, I think, we respect dressing up and looking good.
Right, looking good. Last thing, the photographer. Tell me about her. Who shot your cover?
Oh, Itasia Jordan. She is originally from Massachusetts, has lived in Brooklyn for many years, has an incredible eye, and is such a talent. And she's just incredible. I mean, I don't understand why some of our media haven't scooped her up and made her into a superstar, but she's going to be. She is like a great talent. And that's something that underlines that we need to do more of, is nurturing our talent, not only in front of the scenes, like the models and so on, but also behind the scenes. Photographers, stylists, the people who make fashion run.
Cool. Where can folks see you, hear you, find you?
Oh, they can find me online at official C White and my website, constancecrwhite.com.
All right. Always good to see
Look
you.
forward to chatting. You too.
I appreciate
Mr.
it.
Style.
Keep slaying.
Thank you. We're going to keep slaying. Roland and I are going to keep it slaying. Join us. Make sure you're doing it too.
There you go.